What if a single act of kindness could unlock a lifetime of hidden stories and mend a broken heart? Picture a snowy Christmas Eve in a quiet neighborhood, where a curious young boy named Liam extends a simple invitation to his reclusive elderly neighbor, Mr. Henry. But what unfolds from this gesture, a shared meal, a heartfelt gift, and a forgotten dream, changes their lives forever. Can one evening really bridge decades of grief and spark hope for the future? Stay with us for a story that will warm your heart and remind you of the power of connection. Don't forget to like, comment, and share what kindness means to you as we dive into this touching tale. The snow fell softly, blanketing Asheville in a serene quiet. Christmas carols drifted from nearby homes, blending with the scent of pine and cinnamon in the crisp December air. Liam, a 10-year-old with wide eyes full of curiosity, sat at his apartment window, his chin resting on his hands, staring at the house across the street. It was Mr. Henry's house, dark, lifeless, while other homes glittered with festive lights. His stood silent, shrouded in shadows. Liam's gaze lingered on the dim light from a single window, where Mr. Henry sat alone at a small table, his hunched silhouette stark against the faint glow of a lamp. "Doesn't he get lonely?" Liam muttered to himself. Behind him, his mom, Emily, called from their tiny kitchen, "Dinner's ready, Liam." "Stop staring." Liam turned but couldn't shake the thought of Mr. Henry's solitude. Emily, a nurse who worked long shifts, had filled their modest apartment with warmth despite their simple circumstances. Their Christmas tree was small, decorated with handmade ornaments and a flickering strand of lights, but it felt like home. Over dinner, Liam asked, "Why doesn't Mr. Henry ever decorate for Christmas?" Emily sighed, her eyes tired but kind. "Mr. Henry's been through a lot. Lost his family years ago. Some wounds take longer to heal, sweetheart." Liam pushed his food around his plate. "But it's Christmas. Shouldn't everyone have something?" Emily smiled gently, ruffling his hair. "Focus on what we have, okay? We may not have much, but we've got each other. That's enough." That night, as snow continued to fall, Liam lay in bed, the image of Mr. Henry's dark house lingering in his mind. The weight of loneliness seemed almost tangible. "Maybe I can do something," he whispered into the dark. "Just a small gesture." The idea sparked, fragile but bright, and he drifted to sleep with a sense of purpose. The next morning, the air was crisp, carrying the scent of fresh snow. Liam pulled his jacket tighter as he walked to school, his boots crunching against the icy pavement. Passing Mr. Henry's house, he noticed movement. There, on the icy driveway, was Mr. Henry, clutching a broken cane, his steps unsteady as he carried a flimsy bag of groceries. Liam hesitated, shyness pressing on his chest, but when Mr. Henry faltered, nearly slipping, something stronger.
"Blanket. You won't be fine if the river floods. Please, Mr. Frank." Before Frank could argue, a loud crash echoed. A tree branch had fallen, blocking the road. Water swirled up the porch steps. "We don't have time," Ev shouted. Frank hesitated, pride battling reality, then nodded. "All right. Irene, get your coat." Helping Irene down the steps was grueling. The water was freezing, the current strong. Frank carried a flashlight, its beam cutting through the rain as they headed for higher ground. Ev's breath came in gasps, his raincoat useless against the storm. Irene stumbled, gripping Ev's arm. "Just a little further," Ev said, unsure where further was. Headlights pierced the rain. Deputy Eli Thornton's truck appeared, siren blaring. "Y'all need a ride?" Thornton called. "Yes, sir," Ev shouted. They got Irene into the truck, Frank following, his face etched with worry. Ev was about to climb in when he saw Maisie Carter on her porch, waving frantically. "Deputy, I'll be right back." Ev ran toward Maisie, ignoring Thornton's protest. The water was waist deep, tugging at him. "Maisie, you have to come with me," he shouted. "I can't leave my house." Maisie cried, clutching photographs. "Your house isn't worth your life," Ev argued, grabbing her hand. With great effort, he guided her to the truck, his strength fading as the water rose. Thornton pulled them in, his face grim. "Kid, you've got guts, but you can't keep risking your neck." Ev, exhausted, didn't respond, collapsing beside Maisie, who clutched her photos. At the Greenville High School shelter, the gymnasium buzzed with voices and the cries of children. Ev spotted Joe and Callie near the entrance. Joe wrapped him in a tight embrace. "I was so worried." "Where were you?" "I had to help," Ev said. "The Delaney's, Maisie, they wouldn't have made it." Joe sighed, frustration mingling with pride. "Just stay here, okay?" The rain pounded the roof relentlessly. Ev couldn't sit still, helping pass out food, comfort kids, and patch a leaking window. His best friend, Deck Harris, appeared with a kayak paddle. "My dad's out helping folks with his boat. Thought you'd want to come along." Ev hesitated, glancing at Joe, busy with a volunteer. "Come on, Ev," Deck urged. "People are still out there." Ev nodded. "Let's go." The kayak cut through the floodwaters, rain lashing their faces. Deck paddled steadily while Ev scanned for survivors. They rescued an elderly shopkeeper, Mr. Thompson, a mother and son, a stranded dog, and a teenager clinging to a tree. Each rescue was a battle against the current. By the time they returned, both boys were soaked and exhausted. At the shelter, Deck clapped Ev on the back. "You did good out there." Ev managed a weak smile. "We couldn't just leave them." Deputy Thornton approached, his expression grim. "The levee upstream's close to breaking. If it does, this area could flood worse." Ev's stomach dropped. "What can we do?" Thornton shook his head. "Hope it holds." The levee didn't hold. By dawn, water poured into the shelter, forcing volunteers to evacuate families to higher ground. Ev was in the thick of it, carrying supplies and guiding people through rising waters. "We need to get to the church on Main Street," a volunteer shouted. Ev found Joe and Callie, grabbing Callie's hand. "Come on, we've got to go." The journey was harrowing, knee-deep water, rising fast. Joe carried Callie on her back while Ev steadied Maisie, who struggled to keep her footing. At the church, the sanctuary was crowded, faces etched with exhaustion and fear. Ev helped his family find a spot near the altar, huddling for warmth. But he couldn't stay still, joining Deck and volunteers to build makeshift barriers against the water. His muscles ached, hands raw from the cold, but he refused to stop. "Ev, take a break," Deck said, voice strained. "I can't," Ev replied. "We have to do everything we can." Late that night, as Ev stared out the church window at the flooded streets, Frank Delaney placed a hand on his shoulder. "You've done more than anyone could ask, kid. You saved us." Ev shook his head. "I just did what I had to." Frank smiled faintly. "Sometimes, that's all it takes." The rain began to lighten, and for the first time in days, Ev felt hope. By dawn, the storm had eased, leaving Greenville in eerie silence. The floodwaters lingered, a murky reminder of the chaos. The Maddox family emerged from the church, their home flooded, furniture ruined. Joe pressed her lips together, determined not to cry. "We'll figure it out," she said softly. Ev moved soaked chairs and blankets to the yard, noticing the Delaneys on their porch, gratitude in their eyes. He gave a small wave, turning back to work. The town was a mess, yards like swamps, household items floating aimlessly, but relief hung in the air. The worst was over late that morning, a low rumble broke the quiet. Ev looked up, squinting down the street. A pristine white car rolled into view, its sleek exterior stark against the muddy backdrop. Neighbors stopped, murmurs filling the air. The car stopped in front of the Maddox house. Ev dropped the chair he was carrying, heart pounding. Joe stepped out, shielding her eyes as the car door opened. A man in a crisp suit emerged, holding an envelope. "Everett Maddox?" he asked. Ev nodded, wary. "I'm from the Greenville Community Fund. Word of your bravery spread fast. You risked your life for your neighbors, Frank, Irene, Maisie, and others. We don't let that go unnoticed." He handed Ev the envelope. Inside was a check for $10,000, meant to help the Maddox family rebuild. "And there's more," the man said. "A local contractor heard your story. They're offering to repair your home, free of charge." Joe's eyes filled with tears, and Callie hugged Ev tightly. The neighbors, gathered now, clapped and cheered. Frank Delaney stepped forward, voice thick. "You're a hero, Ev." Ev blushed, overwhelmed. "I just did what anyone would." But the truth was, not. Everyone would. His simple act of kindness had rippled through the town, inspiring others to help, to rebuild, to come together. As the white car drove away, Ev looked at his family, the Delaneys, and the neighbors who felt more like family now. The flood had taken much, but it couldn't wash away the strength of their community or the impact of one boy's courage. Everett Maddox's story reminds us that even in the darkest storms, a single act of kindness can light the way. His courage saved lives and rebuilt a town, proving that heroism doesn't need a cape, just a heart willing to act. What would you do to help someone in need? Share your thoughts in the comments, hit that like button, and subscribe for more stories that show the power of compassion. Together, we can all make a difference, one brave step at a time.